Hello, it's Avaris, back again. This is Under the Thorns, a visual novel by EVERIUM, and this is Chapter 6. Back in Chapter 5, we had just finished the funeral. It was very sad, and it appeared that Edward, who is the mysterious black sheep of the entire manor, who's basically scapegoated for everything, is been cut out of the will, and Olivia may have had something to do with the murder, and she may have had something to do with the will as well. So we're just going to continue from where we left off. The weight of the day's incident pressed heavily upon my heart, yet the demands of work offered little respite. The well-worn paths around the manor, once pristine, now bore the dusty footprints of our departing guests. Following close behind, we servants diligently cleared away the remnants of their visit. As I ventured into the garden, my gaze fell upon the mausoleum. Fallen leaves, a testament to the passing season, lay strewn across its weathered steps, igniting a spark of annoyance within me, because she has to sweep them normally. Never ending, never ending. Will this clearing be my prison? With a grumble, I set about raking, the rhythmic rasp of the tool against the stone. Beneath the brittle tapestry of fallen leaves, new shoots of life unflinchingly pushed through the earth, a defiant proclamation of spring's imminent arrival. A wave of astonishment washed over me as I realized the passage of time. Scarcely half a year had passed, yet within that brief span, our lives had been irrevocably altered. The unsettling events that had plagued the manor, Edward's alleged curse, the death of Robert, it all felt like a feverish dream, yet the lingering ache in my heart bore witness to its stark reality. As I completed my task, sweeping the last vestiges of autumn from the mausoleum grounds, a figure caught my eye. A tanned face, framed by a tightly pressed flat cap, peered from the arched doorway. A leather satchel, bulging with what appeared to be letters, hung from his shoulder. He seemed to be searching for someone, prompting me to quicken my pace. Good morning. May I ask whom you are looking for? Greetings. I was directed here to find Mr. Edward, but it appears he may be elsewhere. Oh, you mean Lord Edward. Edward had not visited the mausoleum since the funeral, a fact that seemed to have escaped the notice of the postman. His words, laced with an innocent trust, mirrored the lack of interest regarding Edward's well-being by those who guided the postman here. I extended a hand towards the postman, my features hardened with resolve. If it's a letter for Lord Edward, I'd be happy to deliver it myself. A fleeting urge to strike up a conversation with him did arise. A flicker of surprise crossed the postman's face, quickly replaced by a grateful smile. I was instructed to make sure Lord Edward reads this first. I accepted the letter, my fingers tracing the embossed seal. There was no sender's name, only a cryptic set of initials. Seems private. Maybe I shouldn't be the one to break the seal. Conventionally, all correspondence intended for Edward would first pass through Olivia's hands to ensure his safety. Ho ho ho, I'll bet that's what it was. However, the events of the past few days had eroded my trust in Olivia, leaving me with a gnawing unease. Such disrespect in the face of loss is beyond comprehension. Have some decency, said the woman, who was two-faced whatever. The vivid memory of her enraged face, contorted with contempt, flashed across my mind. In the aftermath of the funeral, she had taken on the airs of the manor's mistress, her every action a blatant disregard for Edward's grief. With a newfound purpose, I turned back towards the manor house, the letter clutched securely in my hand. My resolve was unwavering. I would see Edward first, before Olivia even had the chance to intercept the message. I was told a letter had arrived this morning. However, fate, it seemed, had other plans. As I navigated the labyrinthine hallways, Olivia materialized before me, her icy hand outstretched as if preordained by some unseen prophecy. Yes, it is for Lord Edward. Gosh darn it all, Clara, you should have just lied and been like, I don't know about the letter. The postman said he'd find him, and I didn't do nothing. I've got nothing for you, sorry. Oh, gosh darn it all. It is my duty to check the letters addressed to his lord. Please, hand it over to me. You know, so you can just hide everything away from Edward and he gets nothing while you also badmouth him and make the entire staff hate and avoid him. Lovely, lovely. Yes, of course. My tongue stumbled as I attempted to emphasize the letter's intended recipient, but her glacial stare remained unmoved, a silent harbinger of the evictions that surely awaited me. You know, I'm thinking it was not Edward's fault at all that those ladies went gone, the 13 maids before Clara. It was probably all Olivia. She was just, like, waiting for someone that she could use, or she was just cycling through people who were maybe more adept at making the other staff realize, hey, Edward's not so bad, actually. I don't know what Olivia's on about, but there's some shenanigans afoot. And then she came up with, like, the shadows. I don't know. I've got theories. They all suck. But her glacial stare remained unmoved, a silent harbinger of the eviction that surely awaited me. Defeated, I surrendered the letter. No! Relinquishing my sole weapon in this silent war. Olivia's lips, usually pursed in disapproval, contorted into a fleeting smirk as she devoured the letter's contents. You may deliver it to him. Well, at least there's that. A tempest of questions raged within me. Why was she acting all high and mighty over a letter that was meant to be delivered rightfully to his lord? But I maintained a stoic mask, concealing the agitation beneath. The hours crawled by, each tick of the clock a tormenting reminder of Edward's absence. I skipped dinner until finally, as the fiery fingers of sunset painted the sky crimson, I heard a telltale crunch of gravel. I bolted from my seat, the accumulated tension erupting as I saw Edward, disheveled but safe, stride toward the shadowed maw of the mausoleum. Startled by my sudden appearance, he blinked, momentarily losing his footing. Then a hesitant smile, laced with a web of conflicting emotions, bloomed on his lips.
Clara ka? Genki datta?
It's you, Clara. How have you been? Good, Lord Edward. Thank you. You too? His mirror smiled the awkward greeting I offered, my words distant and tentative. He glanced at the letter clutched in my hand, then, without a word, reached out. Minutes stretched into an eternity as he devoured the message, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. When he finally finished, a heavy sigh escaped his lips.
そうだね。そういう時が来たんだ。
I see. Overdue, I suppose.
クララ、手紙を捨ててくれ。読んでもいいから。
The letter, yes. Throw it away, Clara, if you please. A weary hand massaged his brow, hinting his distress. Without meeting my gaze, he withdrew into the manor's vast embrace, swallowed by its concealing darkness. Yeah, if he reacts that way and Olivia was like, yeah, you can show it to him, it was probably just a letter with bad news. So, sorry. Left alone with the echo of his retreating footsteps, I stared down at the now open letter. Dear Edward, grim tidings, I'm afraid. The salty winds conspired against my passage, and my arrival is now becalmed beyond February's frost. It grieves me deeply that I'll miss your father's final voyage. May the hell have mercy on his soul, if he has one. We shall raise a toast to your father soon. Yours affectionately, Brandon. Brandon. Oh, I remember. It was the uncle who goes traveling, and Edward wanted to do the same, and they talked about it before. Yeah, that sucks. Also, interesting letter with the whole, pretty sure your dad went to hell, but we'll have a toast to him. Scarcely had the ink of the letter dried when a serpent of carriages, all grand and gleaming in the afternoon sun, slithered up the manor's drive, disgorging a cacophony of footmen and horses. They're here, through the gates already! By the heavens, they've arrived ahead of schedule. No matter, we must adapt. Get the kitchens churning, the rooms prepped. Drawn by the commotion, I, along with the rest of the bustling servant swarm, gravitated towards the grand hall, anticipation thickening the air like dust motes in a sunbeam. There, before the oaken maw of the entrance, stood Edward, an unaccustomed formality clinging to him. Oh, hello. Is this Brandon? This might be Uncle Brandon. We shall see. I hope he's helpful, but other theories and Scooby-Doo logic make me wonder if he isn't, like, in league with Olivia. I mean, there needs to be someone on Team Edward, because there's, like, nothing going for the kid, but, this might be... It could mean either thing. We shall see. As the doors groaned open, revealing a tableau of opulence, a man stepped into the hall, his middle-aged frame draped in a cloak that whispered of faraway ports and sun-bleached landscapes. He exuded an air of freedom, a stark contrast to the stuffy conservatism that permeated the manor's very bricks.
邸宅へようこそ、ブランドン卿。
Welcome to the manor, Lord Brandon. Formal as ever, Edward. Though I wouldn't expect a handshake from a lord, perhaps a nephew's hug is in order. Edward met the man halfway, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I saw it mirrored in the newcomer's eyes, a warmth that seemed to momentarily thaw the frigid reserve Edward usually wore like a second skin. But even as the smile blossomed, I noted a flicker of discomfort dance across his features, a subtle withdrawal from the man's overly affectionate pat on the shoulder. Then Lord Brandon launched into the purpose of his visit. So yes, Robert. Heard he shuffled off this mortal coil.
見に行きますか?
Would you like to visit his tomb? Eh, why bother with the tomb? He's probably off charming the devil himself. Just as the letter had hinted, their interactions were laced with subtle discord. Lord Brandon's words felt tinged with a cynicism I rarely witnessed in one addressing their brother. Brandon's jovial hand landed on Edward's shoulder, the weight of it surprising the ever-cautious diplomat, momentarily disrupting the carefully constructed barrier he so often wore. I've come to see you, Edward. Though the afterglow will have to wait, I'm beat. Suddenly, Lord Brandon, with practiced theatricality, declared himself wearied by the journey, leading his entourage, a silent tide of black and silver livery, toward Olivia's watchful figure. Please don't be in league with the housekeeper stealing your nephew's fortune. Without a word, she absorbed them into the manor's shadows, leaving Edward adrift in the wake of their departure. Curiosity burning, I exchanged a conspiratorial glance with Bruce. Sounds like Mr. Brandon and Lord Robert didn't quite see eye to eye, huh? Yeah, they had their differences. A bit of a clash of personalities, I guess. Lord Brandon was rather free-spirited. I thought Edward wanted to be free-spirited. Like, he talked about how he wanted to travel like his uncle. I don't know. Having heard Bruce's depiction of Lord Brandon, Alice snorted. Free spirit is one way to put it. More like a rebellious thorn in Lord Robert's side. Alice, you're too loud. Pff, like I care. I feel sorry for Lord Robert. He bent over backwards for him, gave him everything, and what did he get? Nothing but ingratitude and trouble. Bruce sought to soften the blow of Alice's coldness with a smile and some quick rationalization. He had a flair for the unconventional back then. A bit of a maverick, you could say. He held a certain sway over Edward, and the late lord appreciated that. Apparently, beneath the veneer of formality, he and Edward shared a bond closer than the rigid ties to Olivia or the late Lord Robert. As they exchanged inaudible words between them, Brandon's fingertips stabbed the air in our direction, followed by Edward's stern reaction. His eyes, usually as veiled as a locked room, swirled with emotions before retreating behind his customary mask. My breath caught in my throat. Had he somehow caught wind of our hushed whispers? I mean, Bruce did talk about us being loud. But no, his gaze turned swiftly away from me, settling back on Brandon with an intensity that almost felt like a rejection. It was as if I had become a mere shadow beneath his notice, unworthy of a second glance. And in a curious twist of my own conflicted heart, I was both relieved and repulsed. Aww. Edward has someone else to give attention to, and it's not just you. Breakfast broke the weak silence, serving up a breaking news. You mean me? Yeah, he doesn't want anyone else. Thomas met my worried gaze with a furrowed brow, mirroring the disquiet within. Lord Brandon's unexpected olive branch, a dinner with Edward to mend their strained ties, had blossomed into a thicket of thorns. Edward's acquiescence to Brandon's dinner proposal seemed inevitable, a foregone conclusion etched in the starch of the tablecloth and the glint of silver cutlery. Yet nestled within the folds of agreement, a viper of a problem slithered forth. The head butler, his face an impassive mask, conveyed the unexpected stipulation: my presence at the table, not as a guest, but as a server. Alice, perched across from me like a startled sparrow, mirrored my disbelief in a swift shake of her head. Not again, that weirdo. Again? That maverick. Every time there's a new face in the manor, he uses some colorful excuses to get them out. He doesn't seem to do anything naughty, but yes, he's one of a kind. Well, if Thomas is saying it, I'm betting Brandon is not so great. Oh, lovely. We have another horrible person in the manor. Not a helper. Gosh darn it all. The absurdity of the situation, coupled with Alice's incredulous gaze, made me acutely aware of its unfairness. Alice, never one to mince words, tilted her head closer, her sharp eyes glinting with questions. Why'd he single you out all of a sudden? Did you do something? I don't know myself. I haven't even exchanged a word with Lord Brandon since that momentary glimpse in the main hallway. I have never even met him. But Edward, to my surprise, refused it a few times. Oh, yeah, the uncle's gotta be up to no good. Lovely, lovely. Maybe he was the reason that the maids got chased out, the former ones. Really? I opened my eyes widely. The air seemed to thicken, with hushed words as the head butler relayed Edward's initial response to Brandon's request, a tapestry of flimsy excuses, each thread woven with the claim of my inexperience in formal service. Though with each refusal politely phrased but firm, I detected a tremor in the fabric, a hint of something deeper simmering beneath. Was the aversion personal or an attempt to shield me from Lord Brandon's unpredictable presence? My stomach churned with uncertainty, the dampness blooming on my palms. Dinner service. Will I be able to get through it? This unexpected twist had thrust me into an unfamiliar role, a character I hadn't rehearsed, and a stage I felt woefully unprepared for. The vine of worry, already entwined around my heart, tightened its grip. Despite the anxiety, the preparations for the dinner hummed with controlled chaos. Each rule, etched in the manor's history, was meticulously followed, additional cutlery gleaming on pristine linen, superfluous seats politely dismissed. Sharp-eyed servants privy to the evening's significance materialized out of the shadows, offering hushed critiques of my every placement. Just as I began scrutinizing my notes, a sharp rap at the door startled me from my focus. Lord Brandon, draped in casual finery, exuded an air of relaxed amusement, while Edward's face was a storm cloud of disquiet. The tension radiated, causing even Thomas and Alice to stand ramrod straight, their faces etched with ineffable concern. Alice said, "I'll be in the kitchen, let me know if you need any help." Alice's hand, a brief flash of comfort, patted my shoulder before she retreated to the kitchen's sanctuary. Thomas sent a silent cheer. Taking a deep breath that swallowed the bitter knot in my throat, I stepped into the light, confronting the two nobles. Edward, his jaw clenched tight, reflected nervousness, while Brandon, a puzzle wrapped in a smile, studied me with an unnerving intensity. "Sorry, I wouldn't normally dare disturb your dedication, but a whisper of your involvement piqued my curiosity." "I beg your pardon?"
席に座って話しましょう、おじさん。
"Why don't you take a seat first, Uncle?" Edward's voice, sharp and abrupt, sliced through the conversation before I could grasp its meaning. He ushered his uncle towards a seat, his movements stiff and controlled. That was my job, I thought, when Brandon held out his hand with a friendly smile. "Don't bother. My purpose in summoning you is not to dictate, but to engage in conversation." My gaze shifted to Edward, seeking in his disapproving nod some justification for the unexpected task. Then why call me at all? The silent question bubbled within me, but duty demanded obedience. I stepped back, retreating into the shadows of my assigned role. "What would you like for an aperitif?" "I'll go with the chef's recommendation."
水でお願い。
Water, please. The empty table devoured my attention. Swallowing my voice whole, Edward hastened to add.
あの客も
And for our guest. Certainly. Ah, the rules of the manor, always lurking. Brandon's eyes sparked with sudden comprehension. His tongue clicked against his teeth, the sound sharp and unsettling. I, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, excused myself and slipped outside to deliver the orders to the kitchen. The sound of lively conversation continued to fill the room. The clink of crystal announced my arrival with the requested drinks. Edward, engaged in subdued conversation, briefly glanced my way, and the room's volume dipped further. An awkward realization settled upon me. Had I unwittingly interrupted a private exchange? They knew you were coming back. It's fine. A sigh escaped me as I hastily placed the beverages down, a growing sense of annoyance prickling at my nerves. Just as I prepared to depart, Brandon, his face etched with a disarming smile, made a request. To ensure uninterrupted enjoyment of this exquisite meal, I would be happy if you could present all the courses simultaneously. Oh, I see. I shall let the kitchen know. While we wait, Miss Clara, wouldn't you care to join me at the table? There seems to be an unoccupied seat. Sorry? A tremor of unease shook me. Was there a hidden motive lurking beneath Brandon's casual suggestion? Like sexual harassment? Or the ghosties are real, and it's his fault, making people break rules, that the other maids had stuff happen and they left. My surprised eyes turned to Brandon. Edward, in stark contrast, seemed to retreat behind a mask of disapproval.
おじさん、2人だけで食事するという条件だったじゃないですか。
Uncle, our agreement was for an intimate dinner, a tete-a-tete, if you will. Having Miss Clara present would be a deviation from our understanding. Was it? Don't look at me like that. You're embarrassing your uncle. Despite Edward's icy glare, Brandon's smile held steady, its warmth seemingly directed at me alone. Cradling the tray, I found myself shifting under the weight of their combined attention, my smile a grimace of awkwardness. Edward's brows arched briefly, a mere hint of surprise before it smoothed away. Then his gaze drifted sideways, avoiding mine. So you don't even want to look at me now? Fine, then I have other plans. It's an honor to be able to talk to someone as wonderful as you, Mr. Brandon. Oh wow, going for jealousy or whatever. Hang on. Because I'm pretty sure... Yeah. If you don't even want to look at me... The thing is, Brandon, it might not be new staff. It might be anyone who's been chummy with Edward. Who knows? I shall ensure your request reaches the kitchen. I'll be back shortly. My words tumbled out before I could catch them. The world blurred, and somehow I found myself perched on the stool, work clothes rumpled and awkward. My heart, instead of swelling with excitement, throbbed with a raw discomfort. The realization of being invited, of exposing myself to Brandon's world, felt like a spotlight on my own vulnerability. I felt the prickle of Brandon's gaze on me. His voice, dripping with an almost cloying sweetness, broke the stunned silence. I assume you've been to a dinner party before. I attended a few while I served Lady Jane. She had taught me the dining etiquette. She must have taken quite a liking to you. I just concluded that she deemed it wiser to keep me seated beside her than set me loose in the boundless fields ready to wreak havoc. So, Miss Clara, how long have you been serving the manor? Just over 4 months, sir. My, I figured you'd been here longer with how good you are at your job. Thank you. Haha, don't feel the need to exert undue pressure upon yourself. How can I not feel pressured? The question echoed in my head as I watched Edward discreetly swipe at his mouth. His facade of calm fractured, his nervous gesture giving way to a tightly drawn expression, a mix of apprehension and resolve hardening his features. I should have asked this earlier. Forgive my curiosity, Miss Clara, but the air seems charged with a certain intrigue around you and Edward. Perhaps you could shed some light on the recent developments. Recent developments. We haven't talked much. He kind of indicated he wants me to leave. What does he want to know from us? Our recent exchange of contempt? I remained silent in embarrassment. With a smirk like a sly cat who'd stumbled upon a squeaking mouse, Brandon's eyes flicked back and forth, savoring the awkward dance playing out between us. You see, Edward wrote me the most peculiar thing, asking me if I would take someone under my wing, someone he's apparently vouching for with the utmost, shall we say, creative license. Oh dear God, Edward, what did you write to him about Clara? What did Edward write to Brandon about Clara?
酔いましたね、おじさん。
You're drunk, Uncle. Haha, you don't have to feel so shy. The playful glint in Brandon's eyes met a wall of unyielding neutrality in Edward's gaze. Like a mischievous child, testing boundaries, Brandon savored the challenge, his smile widening ever so slightly. Edward, with the unflappable grace of a seasoned diplomat, maintained his indifferent facade, the flick of his wrist as he resumed wiping his mouth, the only hint of acknowledgement. If not, I still have a chance. Miss Clara, why don't you work for me? Never mind, he was not a child, he was just a weird person. Brandon's sly laugh ripped through my strained smile, shattering my carefully constructed facade. Without a word, Edward's gaze met mine, then hardened like flint as he turned to Brandon, his voice laced with frustration.
本気で提案しますが、お酒を減らした方がいいですよ。
With the utmost sincerity, I suggest you consider moderating your alcohol consumption. Why, didn't you say I'm a wonderful person, Miss Clara? Yes, but I didn't mean it in any other way. I thought I would get sick if I had food right now. The echo of my thoughts hadn't even faded when Edward spoke, his voice dropping to menacing tone.
クララは誰にでも優しいので、そうするしかありません。
That is because her kindness transcends individual relationships and extends to all she encounters. Really? I guess she's been pretty good to you.
そういえば、手紙でいい事業を見つけたと書いてありましたが、いかがでしたか?
Forgive my delay in mentioning this, Uncle, but your previous letter alluded to a promising business venture. I couldn't help but be curious as to its progress. How has it fared? Oh, that! Brandon, like a chameleonic actor slipping out of a role, seamlessly morphed back into the picture of a polished gentleman as the conversation steered to professionalism. Edward, his shoulders previously hunched in tension, eased into a more relaxed posture, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. The air, thick with tension moments ago, thawed, melting into a semblance of their usual convivial dinner atmosphere. The clinking of ice against crystal replaced the gurgling symphony of water. Glasses were consistently offered to my hand, then another, then another. The chill of the first sip gave way to a slow burn, a flush creeping up my neck and staining my fingertips a telltale red. Oh dear, main character getting buzzed. I fanned myself, the air thick with the heady scent of wine and laughter, as Brandon's voice wove a captivating tapestry of words. My sister-in-law possessed quite a prodigious talent for painting. It's such a lamentable shame that she's chosen to set her brushes aside. I agree, she had incredible talent. Did Edward show you the paintings? Brandon's gaze, once again alight with mischievous sparklers, darted back to Edward. With a conspiratorial grin, he cupped his hands over his mouth, not quite muffling a playful psst that promised thrilling gossip on the other side. Did you know, Clara, that Edward shares his mother's artistic flair? That's quite a revelation, Mr. Brandon.
騙されるなよ。教養としてやっと書いていた程度だよ。
Please, Clara, do not be misled by Brandon's exaggerations. My artistic endeavors are, at best, mere drabblings on the periphery of true talent. Ha ha! I see a touch of blushing on your cheeks, Edward. Have the charms of Miss Clara subdued the lion of the ballroom?
お願い、おじさん。変な噂を広めないでください。
Don't be absurd, Uncle, please. The flush on Edward's face, a delicate watercolor in the candlelight, left me grappling with a tangle of emotions. My drunkenly imagined picture of him pirouetting in a ballroom spurred a giggle that choked on my lips. If being the epitome of bachelor made him a social butterfly, why did envy twist in my gut like a vine choked by jealousy? As long as it wasn't about him, I muttered, branching off the ongoing conversation. The balls at the manor. I assumed the late Lord Robert were present at the parties. The jovial melody of the evening abruptly hit a discordant note. Well, yes, because of the location. Nonetheless, Robert was rather a gentleman of fertile fields and flamboyant displays. Forgive my curiosity, Mr. Brandon, but wouldn't Lord Robert's social life offer clues about his prominence? Ha! Prominence! Don't make me laugh. The air crackled with dissonance. His smile faltered like a candle flame in a draught. I knew with a sinking feeling in my chest that I'd overstepped. Rising awkwardly, I fumbled for words to mend the frayed thread of our conversation. Well, I will bring the desserts. My vision blurred, the ground rushing up to meet me. Then a hand, a lifeline in the darkness, snatched me back from the brink, Edward's awkward but worried face looming above.
クララ、座っていて。僕が行ってくるよ。
Clara, be seated. I will handle this. And it looks like they retired to the drawing room. It is very pretty. It is very, very pretty. Love the art in this. Brandon, fueled by the merriment, proposed another round of drinks. Despite my desire to leave after a respectable amount of time, his persistent coaxing kept me tethered to the scene. They were escorted to the living room. I followed them. Brandon's insistent urging, propelled by the social momentum of the group, made escape feel like swimming against the tide. Entwined in the playful banter, I found myself swept along by the current of the evening. Glancing at the clock, a pang of impatience pricked me. Early morning tasks and the unforgiving schedule of my job loomed large, but my employers wouldn't respect that.
Are you paying attention, Edward? Edward, to your uncle.
はい。
Yes. Edward thought he was the host, but Brandon, liquored up and loquacious, had hijacked the evening like a tipsy cruise director. Brandon embarked upon yet another voyage through the well-charted waters of his oft-repeated narrative. Consulting my mental chronometer, I recognized the hour of my impending departure, and a resolute determination, akin to the unfurling of a nautical flag, rose within me. Gentlemen, I'm leaving. My abrupt rise elicited a mirroring response from Edward, his limbs protesting as he sought purchase on the table. His slurred pleas seemed to suggest a shared desire for escape.
クララ、一人で大丈夫かい?
Clara, would you be all right on your own? His concern, laced with the echo of his own unsteadiness, felt oddly misplaced. Shouldn't you have stepped up a bit earlier? I pivoted away, seeking solace in Brandon's steady gaze. A sharkish grin slit across Brandon's shrewd face as he gave Edward a pointed wave, a silent plea for him to stay.
Worry, Edward? The house is safer than a dragon's lair. Trust me, there's nothing to fear here.
そうだけど。
I dare not disagree, however. Mr. Brandon is right. You even proved it yourself, my lord. This humble servant holds a history of handling matters heroically.
Besides, we need some privacy for manliness. Oh dear, what are they gonna get up to?
Probably nothing. In a flash, Brandon materialized beside him, locking his arm around Edward's shoulder with the weight of an unspoken expectation. Edward, surprised by the swift change of tactics, flinched slightly, a mix of betrayal and confusion darting across his eyes.
クララ。
Clara. Wishing you both a productive and prolonged evening, gentlemen. My feet beat a steady rhythm against the corridor, each step carrying me further away from their lingering gaze. A whimper laced with despair drifted after me, but my resolve, hardened by necessity, remained perfectly unshakable. As the moon replaced the fading flames of sunset, a hush descended upon the gathering, the remnants of laughter dissipating like mist in the crisp night air. I felt a sigh slide from my lips, a physical release from the warmth of the room and the dizzying whirlwind of Brandon's narratives. Phew, I'm never joining them in the future. While his tales about Edward, spun with the flourish of a tipsy raconteur, had held a certain charm, his inebriated state was intolerable. The thought of Edward, poor fellow, trapped in the vortex of Brandon's boisterous bonhomie, sent a ripple of enjoyment across my lips.
Bonhomie.
Honestly, I find him using me as his convenient excuse. A prickling sensation, as though eerie eyes bored into my back, prompted me to pivot on my heel, yet the corridor remained stubbornly empty, the familiar shadows untouched by any intruder. I feel the chills again. I found myself quickening my steps towards my room, trying to ignore the trickle down my spine. The manor, of late, had seemed steeped in an unusual aura, a deepening of its usual shadows, even as the daylight hours stretched longer. Was it merely my imagination, I pondered absently, as my gaze drifted to the window? Or did the lengthening shadows indeed hold a different kind of mystery in their grasp? A shaft of light, unexpected and intrusive, pierced the gloom above, momentarily illuminating the second floor. Though I recognized the corridors at night as harmless, the house rules demanded discretion. I lowered myself into the shadows to avoid getting in their sight. The beam briefly danced across the ceiling before plunging back into darkness, leaving me blinking in the aftermath. Hesitantly, I peeked through the glass, only to find a familiar face. It's Olivia. Clad once more in her flowing robe, Olivia glided towards the basement, her fingertips brushing the edge of her hood. The sight struck me with a discordant note. Her purposeful movements seemed at odds with the strict confines of the household's dictates. Did Olivia, I pondered, weave these very directives to cloak a clandestine purpose? Answers, it seemed, were paramount. With swift feet, I descended the stairs, my steps quickened by the urge to unravel the secrets lurking beyond the backyard threshold. So followed her out through the garden, and we're back to this little cottage we saw before, where we were unable to get inside and see what's what, but Olivia's got secrets, and maybe we'll find out a little bit more. Olivia's swift departure had painted the air with a chilling absence, the silence itself pregnant with the echo of her hurried steps. Time, draped in a cloak of uncertainty, seemed to slow to a crawl, each tick of the clock a reminder of the secrets lurking beneath my feet. The weathered metal handle of the cabin door, cool and clammy under my touch, felt like a chilling premonition of the truths I was about to unearth. Taking a steadying breath, I pushed open the heavy door, its groan a haunting prelude to the descent into the enigmatic depths below. Oh, this is a surprise. She left it unlocked! The door hung ajar between me and the shadowed depths within, silently screaming. Like whispers of tales of decay and abandonment, the wind gnashed through the crack. Sharp and acrid taste of alcohol lingered. It burnt a path of defiance down my throat, like a temporary antidote to the creeping dread. Ooh, that's unexpected to find in that little cottage. I wonder where it goes. The cabin's familiar aroma of rust and sawdust had vanished, replaced by a damp, earthy chill that crept up my sleeves as I stepped across the threshold. No cluttered shelves or workbenches greeted me, only a broad staircase, spiraling downwards like a black serpent into the heart of the unknown. The candlestick, snatched from a forgotten corner, offered a sputtering bravado against the encroaching darkness. Its flame, buffeted by a sudden gust of frigid air, flared precariously, casting shifting shadows that danced on the rough-hewn walls. A grimace twisted my features as I clutched my hands together, offering scant protection against the chilling breeze. I don't know why, but this place gives me the creeps. The gloom at the bottom of the stairs yielded to a subtle luminescence, painting the damp stone walls with an enigmatic glow. Bathed in the harsh glare of the room, Olivia stood rooted, her back rigid against the shadowed staircase. Incoherent syllables were tumbling from her lips. The very air crackled with unseen eyes, amplifying the manor's inherent eeriness to an unbearable pitch.
Olivia, the unknown eldritch cultist that we all somehow did not see coming. I did not see eldritch abomination evil cult chanting going on, but that's okay.
What? A monstrous hand of ice gripped my heart, squeezing the air from my lungs. Panic gnawed at my insides as I contemplated flight. Yet my foot remained rooted, transfixed by the infernal revelry on the wall. The shadows, no longer passive observers, had become predators, their contorted forms wreathing in a chilling symphony of dread. Ooh, nice artwork. Also, who saw Olivia as, like, this eldritch caller who's... No wonder she, like, knew everything that was happening in the place, where it's like, she's got every shadow, I guess, is her spy, so it's like, holy crud. This is neat. Okay. Clara is shocked. The housekeeper's body twisted and contorted to impossible angles, limbs weaving like vines reaching for the moon. Her laughter, a shrill cry that scraped down my spine, mingled with incoherent whispers that danced at the edge of comprehension. Hisses coiled around me like slithering serpents, punctuated by the high-pitched squeaks of unseen night terrors. Terror, cold and clammy, flooded my veins, making my body tremble like a ship caught in a sudden storm. The shadows' hungry mouths, stretching from the corners of the room, devoured the edges of my vision, swallowing the floor beneath my feet. Disoriented and lost, I stumbled, the hard earth slamming into me like a cruel embrace. Olivia, usually unflappable, froze, her gaze snapping toward the source of the sudden noise. Her chest rose and fell in rapid, stertorous breaths.
Stertorous.
You, reveal yourself! Each step of the winding staircase echoed into the abyss, the shadows playing tricks on her senses. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to seek solace, just the oppressive vastness pressed in from all sides. Every nerve ending hummed with alertness, her ears straining to catch the faintest whisper in the suffocating silence. What should I do? Blow out the candle and hide, or flee immediately? I appreciate that this is not timed. Oh my goodness. I mean, first instinct is definitely flee immediately, but, killing the light and then hiding might actually work out better? One of these choices is gonna get me killed. I'm a hide. Easy, Clara. Deep breaths. It's just a spill. With a shaky yet deterministic hand, I snuffed out the candle and plunged myself back into the inky void to retrace my steps up the stairs. My eyes were fixed on Olivia's silhouette, which remained unmoving. Even if she turned, my form would melt into the shadows. Easy, Clara. Everything is going to be all right. Just calm down. The fragile truce of stillness shattered. Like a predator scenting prey, Olivia turned, her eyes glinting with newfound realization. Moonlight stretched shadows into hungry fingers, each one inching closer, closer, until they clasped around me like icy chains. Finished, I thought. I knew one of these choices would get me killed. Finished, I thought. The word a cold ember on my tongue as the jaws of my fate clamped shut. Thud. After the crash, only a trembling tuft of fur, a cat's shadow clinging to Olivia's palm, broke the silence. I could see your tail. Olivia hadn't flinched at the noise, even though she must have heard. Now I figured she was busy thinking about the fuzzy problem at her feet. Oh my gosh, I managed to get away? And apparently Clara ran all the way back to her room. Oh my goodness. Maybe this is okay. Maybe that was the right decision. I don't know. The shadows clung to me like cobwebs as I clawed my way up the stairs. Only when the distance muffled the world below did I feel the ice around my heart thaw, allowing me to unleash a frantic sprint until I finally stumbled into the sanctuary of my room. Had I run, I would have been in danger. Doubt danced on the edge of consciousness as I hunched, hands raw against my cheeks. But deep within, where the liquor couldn't reach, an unsettling certainty bloomed, cold and real. What was Olivia doing in the basement? My lips remained locked, as if the words I craved had all retreated to the corners of my mind, lost in the labyrinth of ineffable truths. And that was the end of Chapter 6! Holy crud, I did not see Eldritch stuff coming. I mean, technically not confirmed. Maybe she's just like a cultist, because we didn't actually see stuff, but it said she contorted. And yeah, I don't know. She's definitely connected to like the curse BS, but I don't know if we're going to go the route of this is all actually supernatural stuff and there's creepy shenanigans and we need to get on the ball like stat with our own books and crystals and things, or maybe it could still go the route of this is all just fancy trappings and things to, get at that inheritance and stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that was chapter 6. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it too. Bye!